Fortunately, I'm starting to get this gut feeling that we might not even see Caitlin back on the court this season, and that might actually be the best thing. Caitlin should be out for the rest of the season. Maybe this season is just done for her. Maybe it doesn't make sense.
Injury report that Caitlin Clark is a game time decision. I think they did that for ticket sales. I think they knew that we all was going to pick up on that and pretty much say, well, you know what? There's a chance Caitlin Clark could be coming back for this game, maybe even that game.
I'm starting to get a gut feeling that we might not see Caitlin Clark back on the court this season, and honestly, that might be the best thing for her. The Indiana Fever just dropped a bombshell, listing Clark as a game-time decision, but I'm calling it what it is, a desperate, transparent ploy for ticket sales. The WNBA is in full panic mode, and they're using their injured superstar as bait, pumping out vague, contradictory updates to keep fans hooked, all while the truth of her serious injury gets buried under a mountain of hypocrisy.
About the Caitlin Clark injury, let's listen to her, bro.
Caitlin starting full court running last week. Has she been able to do anything extra since then or return to practice at all?
No return to practice. She's been able to get a little bit more in her full court running, with her all of her body weight. It's really building up from doing minimal to then building some endurance to do longer periods of time. She's been able to do a little bit more on the court in terms of how she moves.
Caitlin Clark's.
So there is really no timetable as to when Caitlin Clark could return. Y'all got me? There is no set time as when CC could possibly be coming back. And as of right now, the Indiana Fever is looking real spooky because they're not keeping it at 100.
Specifically, the reporting around Caitlin Clark's injury, because I feel like it is getting stranger by the day. It has been a month now that Caitlin has.
Let's break down this circus of misinformation. Caitlin Clark has been sidelined with a groin injury since July 17th. First, the official word was day to day. Then, as the weeks dragged on, it mysteriously shifted to out indefinitely. And then, my personal favorite, she was suddenly listed as a game-time decision for a game against Dallas. A game-time decision for a player who, as her own coach Stephanie White would later admit, hadn't participated in a single full practice. Not one. So what exactly was the decision about? Whether she'd wear sneakers or slides on the bench? It's an insult to the intelligence of every fan. They are playing games with her status to keep those ticket sales and streaming numbers from completely flatlining.
But it's looking like he don't care for Caitlin Clark. We know clear as day that Stephanie White has been looking in certain areas not to be feeling the Caitlin Clark effect. I don't know, but this stuff is definitely looking concerning because
yesterday she was listed as a game time decision for today's game against the Dallas Wings. And then after practice yesterday, Coach Stephanie White basically came out and said, like, no, Caitlin Clark hasn't even been practicing. So they changed it from a game time decision to her being out.
The timeline makes this whole charade even more absurd. There are only 12 games left in the regular season, which ends on September 9th. Beat reporter Scott Agnes dropped the now infamous comment that Clark would be out for at least several more weeks. Several. My guy, do you own a calendar? That timeline puts her return at best for the last 5 or 6 games of the season. What is the point of rushing her back for a meaningless late season stretch, other than to sell a few more tickets and create a last-minute comeback montage for TV?
At the Indiana Fever's schedule right now, they only have 12 games left, and there is exactly 4 weeks left in the regular season.
This isn't even the first time they've engaged in this kind of injury management malpractice. Earlier in the season, Clark returned from a quad injury after participating in exactly 1 full-speed practice. 1. And what happened almost immediately? She got injured again. This is a recurring nightmare of organizational incompetence. They are caught in a vicious cycle. Their superstar gets injured. They get desperate for the revenue she generates. They rush her back before she's ready, and she gets injured again. Either the WNBA is completely incapable of communicating with a shred of clarity, or they are deliberately hiding the truth. I don't know which is worse.
Contenders at this point, I'm just not so sure. Do you risk another injury that can again compound and turn into something else down the line? Now, one other
Now let's talk about the on-court disaster that this deception is designed to mask. In one single cursed night against the Phoenix Mercury, the Fever's season effectively died. Both of their backup point guards, the players filling in for Clark, were wiped out with season-ending injuries. First, Sydney Colson, a veteran leader, tore her ACL in the first quarter. Then, as if the basketball gods were feeling particularly cruel, Arie McDonald went down in the fourth with a broken bone in her foot. In the span of about 40 minutes of game time, the Fever's entire point guard depth chart was erased. And to make matters worse, the trade deadline had passed just 4 days earlier, leaving them with no way to acquire legitimate help.
A star player like that, we will never know all the information, nor should we know all the information, and that's actually good for Caitlin. It protects her for when she does come back on the court. She can't be targeted. Teams can't use a certain injury or ailment against her if people don't really know what is going on. But
the roster is now hilariously and tragically thin. On paper, they have 10 healthy players, but in reality, Coach Stephanie White refuses to give meaningful minutes to players like Chloe Bibby and Brianna Turner, shrinking her effective rotation to an unsustainable 7 players. It's like trying to cook a gourmet meal with only half the ingredients because you decided you don't like the look of the others. It's not a strategy, it's stubbornness, and it's running the healthy players into the ground.
Thrown back into any mix if she doesn't have significant practices under her belt before she goes into game speed. You can try to simulate game speed as much as you want in practice.
But the most damning part of this entire story comes directly from Caitlin Clark herself. In a recent interview with Sue Bird, she casually dropped a bombshell that should have every Fever fan demanding answers. She revealed that Coach White benched her mid-game for committing 2 turnovers and that the lesson was that she should stop attempting risky high-reward passes. Even more disturbingly, Clark admitted that when she later held back on a potential fast break pass, White praised her for it. You heard that right. The coach of the Indiana Fever gave her generational talent a pat on the back for not doing the very thing that makes her Caitlin freaking Clark. If you believe this coaching philosophy is actively harming Clark's game, hit that like button and let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Colson sustained an anterior cruciate ligament ACL tear. Sydney then to her ACL in her left knee during the first quarter of the game.
It began in the first quarter.
Cohesion might be the right word. They've had cohesion issues this entire season. When Caitlin Clark is in, the team plays completely different than when Caitlin Clark is not on the court.
I think you're wrong. Again, you think it'll be a couple more weeks before CC returns to practice. Please stop always saying negative and depressing hit about Caitlin Clark. She has been running full court consistently as reported for over a week. She may be...
This is how you ruin a superstar. You coach the Caitlin right out of Caitlin. It's like telling a young Steph Curry, yeah, Steph, that's a nice shot from 35 feet, but maybe just take the safe mid-range jumper next time. Before Curry, deep threes were considered bad shots. He changed the geometry of the entire sport through his audacity. Clark has the potential to do the same for the WNBA, but her own coach seems determined to smother that revolutionary spark under a wet blanket of boring, safe, cookie-cutter basketball.
Scotty Boy is right, and it's still going to be a couple weeks. You should want to be encouraging to the fans, bro. Like, let's just give it some time. Not just it's finna be a couple weeks. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Practice, she's been able to get a little bit more in her full court running, with her all of her body weight. It's really building up from doing minimal to then building some endurance to do longer periods of time. She's been able to do a little bit more on the court in terms of how she moves.
Caitlin Clark's.
Let's be clear about what's happening here. Clark played 185 consecutive games through high school and college without a single major injury. In less than one WNBA season, she's had 4 separate injuries: quad pulls, groin pulls, the kind of nagging soft tissue injuries that happen when your body is being relentlessly pounded and you aren't given adequate time to recover. The league has failed to protect her from on-court thuggery, and her own team is failing to protect her from their own desperation.
Possibly be injury prone, maybe. You know what I'm saying? We don't know because they're not being transparent. with the injury. They're saying it's a growing strain. It's clearly not a strain, guys. I just want to let you know. Now, Stephanie White said this yesterday.
Well, this is the kind of update I never want to have to give. And this is a bad one, and it affects the same position.
They only have 12 games left, and there is exactly 4 weeks left in the regular season. And the craziest thing about this last groin injury with Caitlin Clark is how it's been covered.
We lost 2 very, very competent players, including the starting point guard that was filling in for the other starting point guard.
The risk of bringing her back now is terrifyingly obvious. Another premature return could lead to a more significant injury, one that could have long-term consequences for her career. But without her, the Fever are looking at a best-case scenario of limping into the playoffs as a low seed with no real chance of winning. The entire league is hanging on the health of one player's groin, and the way the team and the league have handled this situation makes them look amateur at best and dangerously manipulative at worst. So yeah, if you want the unfiltered truth about this and every other WNBA train wreck, stick around. Because at this rate, the next official update on Caitlin Clark might as well be a press release that just says, "We're still making it up as we go."